These are the craziest Karens who lost it in court.
She's suing a guy for $10,000 for standing her up on a date.
I'll be up in heaven while y'all rotting in hell.
You stab, you stab, you stab, you stab until he was dead. I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well.
You sabotaged my society and the cops and the system. A woman got executed and was used for books and movies and shit.
This is Aileen Wuornos. She stands before Judge Uriel Blount in a Volusia County court on trial for the brutal murder and armed robbery of 7 men. Aileen Wuornos was an American serial killer who murdered 7 men in Florida between 1989 and 1990.
Maybe you were just born bad.
Boy, I don't know about you. I'm telling you, man. No, I wasn't born bad. You guys got it. See, I'm trying to tell you, man, they lied. They lied so bad to you all.
But you've been convicted of killing 7 men.
Everybody's looking at the number.
Does that not, you killed 7 men, 7 strangers. Does that not make you a serial killer?
So I didn't kill them every day, did I? Did I go out there every day and say, I'm gonna kill? If I did, there would be hundreds.
Well, no, it took you 12 months.
Yeah, and that's a hell of a lot of men I went through before the next jerk came along and I used protection, like a condom.
So it was
AIDS.
It was self-defense.
Yeah.
Well, the first one, perhaps, the second maybe, but
So what?
7 times?
So what?
During her sentencing, she pleaded no contest, and in the beginning, she asked for forgiveness in court, admitting her guilt.
I have made peace with my Lord, and I have asked forgiveness. I am sorry that my acts of self-defense ended up in court like this, but I take full responsibility for my actions.
In the days that followed, Wuornos was convicted of murder, each verdict eliciting a similar, if not more intense reaction from her. She railed against the system, claiming she had been railroaded and that the court was corrupt. Her voice at times rose to a fever pitch.
Proceedings are now
Putting
concluded.
somebody who is right, please. Yeah.
As she proclaimed her innocence in the face of what she perceived to be a grave injustice.
Case number, I sentence you to death for the murder of David Spears.
Thank you. And probably see, I'll be up in heaven while y'all rotting in hell.
Wuornos' reactions were not limited to verbal outbursts. Her physical demeanor was equally telling. She would often turn to the gallery, her eyes scanning the crowd, as if searching for some semblance of empathy or understanding. At other times, she would slump in her chair, a picture of resignation, only to suddenly jerk upright and launch into another tirade against those she felt had wronged her.
Okay, there will be an automatic appeal. You have the right to an appeal. Mr. Glazer, is that going to be handled by you or the
Your
public
wife and
defender?
kids get
I would ask that you would point to the public's office.
I knew I was you weren't nothing but a bunch of scum.
Therefore, these
However, days before her death, she did come out to confess all of her sins, saying she killed all of the men for money and not in self-defense.
Okay, I cannot go in the execution chamber and die in the execution chamber as a liar. So I have to come clean and tell the world I killed those 7 men in first-degree murder and robbery. As they said, they had it right, a serial killer. Not so much like thrill kill. I was into the robbing biz. I mean, you know, serial killers are in this thrill killing jazz. I was into the robbing, just and eliminate a witness. But still, then again, I got a number, so it's serial killer. But I'm coming clean before I go in that execution chamber and be executed.
Aileen was executed in October 2002. After declining her meal and opting for a cup of coffee, one of her last statements were,
Remember, let them know that I know that the cops knew who I was. After Richard Mallory died, I left prints everywhere, and they covered it up. And let me kill the rest of those guys to turn me into a serial killer. I know they did, because I was no professional serial killer or anything, or murderer, or whatever you want to call it, you know. I wasn't professional at what I was doing.
Aileen,
I did some sloppy work, you know, and I left prints.
Do you want to die? You want to?
Oh man, if I was to leave this planet, it wouldn't be no big deal to me, because this is a wicked, wicked world. Wicked world.
This is Taylor Schabusiness. She appeared before a judge for a competency hearing to assess whether she could understand the court proceedings and assist in her defense. In February of 2022, 25-year-old Taylor Schabusiness was involved in a case that seemed ripped from a horror novel. Taylor and her lover, 24-year-old Shad Therian, were together one night when their usual routine took a dark turn. After smoking meth, Taylor, in a fit of drug-induced rage, strangled Shad to death with a chain in the basement of his mother's house. However, the horror did not end there. In the hours that followed, authorities claimed that Taylor Schabusiness sexually abused Shad's lifeless body before proceeding to dismember him. Panicked and in shock, Schabusiness immediately contacted the authorities. Schabusiness was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. During the competency hearing, Judge Thomas Walsh presided, while attorney Quinn Jolly represented Schabusiness. An expert hired by the defense was expected to testify in the coming days, but Jolly stated that the doctor needed more time to complete his report.
Our doctor is requesting 2 additional weeks to finish preparation and evaluation of report.
Judge Walsh granted the motion, pushing back the start date of the trial to allow for a comprehensive assessment.
During the trial, and we're looking at the week of May 15th for the trial.
And in that moment, Schabusiness jumped out of her chair and lunged at her attorney in a fit of uncontrolled anger. Watch it from this angle. The court officers sprang into action and restrained her. The deputies were able to remove her and place her in a holding cell. Once order was restored and the hearing reconvened, Jolly, who had remarkably sustained no injuries during the attack, requested to withdraw as Schabusiness's attorney.
At this point, I'm going to put a motion in the withdrawal from this matter.
Judge Walsh granted Jolly's motion to withdraw, and Schabusiness was assigned a new attorney from the State Public Defender Office. Notably, she faced no additional charges for the attack on Jolly. Taylor Schabusiness was sentenced to life in prison without parole for killing and dismembering her boyfriend. This is Melissa Hardwick, a Kentucky woman who faced new charges after attacking Judge Jennifer Edwards in family court. The incident occurred during a hearing for a domestic violence complaint filed by her estranged husband.
My personal life is your business.
Hardwick interrupted repeatedly, and after being warned, was sentenced to 10 days in jail for contempt of court.
Nothing to do with
Miss Hardwick,
no.
You will be held in contempt of this court if you become disruptive.
I haven't done anything to this court. I haven't done anything to him.
She will be arrested for contempt of court.
It doesn't make any difference.
You will serve 10 days for contempt of court.
In a sudden outburst, she lunged at the judge, prompting 3 security officers to strain her.
Go now.
Deputy Dodson, with the swift reflexes born of his training, intercepts Melissa before she can reach the judge. The struggle is brief, but intense, with Melissa flailing and shouting, demanding to be let go.
Wait and see. You'll be sad what happens, Jennifer.
The judge, meanwhile, tries to regain her composure, though the shock of the near assault is evident in her eyes. The deputy's intervention brings Melissa to the ground, as she erratically continues to reach for the judge. Once they were able to get Melissa out of the court, you could see the adrenaline in the judge's body, as she was visibly shaking and fumbled with her paper for a while. She soon regained her composure and declared that she was going to be charged for the threats she made openly in court, but it would be in the hands of a new judge.
A new judge will have to be appointed to represent because she will be charged criminally for the threats that were made in open court today.
Although Judge Edwards was unharmed, Hardwick sustained facial scratches and now faces additional charges, including third-degree terroristic threatening, intimidating a participant in the legal process, and resisting arrest. Her bond was set at $25,000. Despite the chaos, Judge Edwards ruled that the domestic violence order filed by Hardwick's husband would remain in effect.
A court case near Detroit sounds like a romantic comedy gone wrong.
Yeah, a woman sues a man for thousands of dollars after he stood her up on a date.
This is Kashante Short. She sued a man for standing her up.
She's suing a guy for $10,000 for standing her up on a date.
I never knew that it was even an offense. But on September 10, 2020, Kashante Short filed a $10,000 lawsuit in Michigan's 67th District Court of Genesee County against a man who didn't show up for their date. She claimed that the no-show caused her emotional distress because the date coincided with her late mother's birthday. During a 9-minute virtual court hearing via Zoom, Judge Herman Marable Jr. informed Short that she had filed the lawsuit in the wrong court and that it should have been filed in circuit court. The judge then asked the defendant if he would be representing himself. The defendant expressed surprise at the lawsuit.
To be honest with you, sir, I thought this was just going to be thrown out. We had a date, one date, and nothing else after that. And now I'm being sued for $10,000. I don't really see how this is going to go any further. I think it's a waste of your time.
Judge Marable explained that if the defendant believed the case should be dismissed, he needed to file a motion to dismiss it. Short then interrupted, accusing the defendant of lying and claiming her documents would prove it. The judge attempted to explain the concept of perjury to her, which led to a heated exchange.
If he responds and his response is a lie, it's perjury, then my documents will prove that he lied and his response.
No. It's a false statement made on oath.
Are we done here? Are we done here? Please do not insult my intelligence.
I said no.
Do not do that. Do not do that.
As the argument escalated, the judge removed his face shield and repeatedly instructed Short to be quiet. The video showed the defendant visibly distressed, holding his head in his hands.
You need to be quiet while I'm talking. You need to be quiet. Can you mute her, please?
I feel for the defendant. I mean, like I said, he should have swiped left.
Short insisted that the case be sent to circuit court, and Judge Marable eventually muted the Zoom call and transferred the suit to the 7th Circuit Court.
The bottom line is you don't have to show up on a date, and it's not a cause of action under the law. It's not an intentional infliction of emotional distress, just to be legal about it, because it's kind of a funny case, except if you look at the expression on the poor guy's face when her and the judge are going at it, he's like, oh my God, get me out of here. You can just see it. But you have to be such outrageous and wanton conduct that no reasonable person could possibly expect that you would do this. And if we were going to criminalize that or civil liabilityize that, we'd have thousands and tens of thousands of suits. Bottom line, you have a right not to show up on your date.
According to court records, this was not the first time Short had filed lawsuits that were dismissed. She had filed at least a dozen suits in both district and circuit courts over the past 2 decades. In January 2020, she filed a $300 million suit against the Flint Police Department, which was dismissed. She also filed a lawsuit against AT&T in October 2020 in Wisconsin, which was dismissed after she failed to appear in court.
I think he's going to get some good dates off of his patience in dealing with this. So, maybe he could use a bad moment for some good.
This is Mitchell Blair. She is about to receive the ultimate punishment at Wayne County Circuit Court. The 35-year-old Michelle Blair is facing charges of first-degree murder for the death of her daughter and felony murder for the death of her son. In 2015, an ordinary day in Detroit's Martin Park neighborhood turned into a nightmare. On a routine March morning, bailiffs arrived at Michelle Blair's townhouse for an eviction and made a shocking discovery. As they removed the furniture, a strong smell hinted at something sinister. Their search led them to a white freezer in the corner of the room. Opening it, they found the frozen remains of a child wrapped in a blanket. Further inspection revealed another child's body, similarly hidden. The victims were later identified as Blair's children, 13-year-old Stoney Blair and her 9-year-old brother, Stephen Barry. Mitchell Blair was arrested and taken to court. Throughout the hearings, Blair showed no remorse and boldly admitted to killing her children before the judge.
I intentionally killed her. I don't feel no remorse for the death of them demons.
Keep in mind, these were her kids she was talking about.
Why did you take the decision to pile the bodies on top of each other in a freezer?
What do you mean?
Why did you do that?
Well, I only had one deep freezer. We didn't take the decision to pile the bodies on top of each other. Where was she gonna go?
How did you conceivably sleep at night?
I slept well.
And you feel no remorse for that?
I would kill him again.
Throughout the trial, Blair maintained that she killed her children, Stephen and Stoney, after discovering they were sexually assaulting her youngest son. However, no evidence was ever found to support her accusations. During Blair's sentencing, Judge Dana Hathaway had a few words to say before passing her judgment.
It's the greatest tragedy here is that they will never know what a life is like without experiencing fearing their mother. They will never know the joy of what could have been in their life without having you in it. They lived in terrible fear of you. And I find that just So sad, this case.
With that, the judge handed down her sentence.
After all is said and done, you imposed the death penalty on your own children.
I did.
And you readily admit it, and you want to take responsibility of it. You're therefore sentenced to the Michigan Department of Corrections for the rest of your life without the possibility of parole, meaning, of course, that you will never get out.
While the sentence was being handed down, Mitchell Blair's face was stoic, showing absolutely no remorse. Mitchell Blair is currently in prison, where she will remain for the rest of her life.
Can you talk me through the type of abuse that you had to suffer as a kid?
You mean sexual abuse?
If that's what happened.
That definitely did happen to me. That's why I know exactly how would have grew up. I told my mother what happened to me, and the only thing she said was, "It's over with, so what the you want me to do about it?" What do you mean what I want you to do? You get what I'm saying? So all I could do is go back and sit in my room and just sit there and look stupid. I'm a kid, and I'm just telling you what happened to me, and you didn't do about it. And plus I still had to see the person coming in and out my house. You still friends with that person.
So do you believe that the violent person you went on to become you were a product of your own childhood?
I mean, everybody have choices, so I can't just blame all that on my mom because I was still an adult. Maybe I should have tried hard to get over that. But anybody who knows me, that touching the kids, the molesting, that no. If that's one thing I definitely would have killed over, it would have always been that.
This is Marlena Pavlos Hackney. She is a restaurant owner with a steely resolve. She stands before the formidable judge Rosemary Aquilina, accused of flouting stat food laws and public health orders amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
Should the restaurant open up again, there will be another bench warrant issued immediately, another pickup order, 93 days and $7,500. I don't know how long you want to do this, ma'am, but we can keep doing it all year long. You must abide by the law.
The government cannot deprive us from life, liberty, or property. So we will do whatever will take that we will be back to us normal life like before.
In the heart of Ingham County, Michigan, a courtroom drama unfolds that captures the nation's attention as the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe. Pavlos Hackney's court reaction becomes a spectacle of defiance and legal wrangling.
I escaped communism, and what I experience right now, this is exactly what makes me feel like I'm back under Soviet Union dictatorship.
Michigan, like many places, was hit with a wave of public health orders aimed at curbing the virus's spread. These orders mandated mask wearing, social distancing, and most impactful for Pavlos Hackney, the temporary closure of dining services at restaurants. Defiance became the order of the day. As Pavlos Hackney, driven by a blend of entrepreneurial spirit and skepticism toward the sweeping restrictions, she kept her restaurant's doors open. Patrons continued to flock to the establishment, finding solace in its familiar comfort during uncertain times. This act of rebellion caught the eye of authorities, and soon the restaurant was not just serving meals, but also dishing out controversy. The stage was set for a legal showdown that would test the limits of individual liberty and public safety. The tension between Marina Pavlos Hackney's determination to keep her restaurant open and the state's enforcement of health regulations escalated quickly.
And I'm also going to issue a bench warrant for your arrest today. We've got to come to some point where individuals are following the law.
Authorities citing repeated violations of the COVID-19 mandates suspended her food license, a move that would have shuttered most establishments. But Pavlos Hackney was undeterred. She doubled down, her restaurant becoming a symbol of resistance as it continued to welcome diners even without a valid license.
We wanted to support Marlena because she has supported this community for a long time, and she has stood for her values, and she loves Jesus, and we love Jesus.
The legal system responded with a firm hand. A court order demanded the immediate closure of the restaurant until a hearing could be held. Pavlos Hackney, however, remained resolute, her doors open, her kitchen busy. The defiance led to the issuance of a bench warrant for her arrest, a stark indication of the seriousness with which the state viewed her actions.
That I would be here other than acting as assistants, not as for lawyers.
Enter Richard Martin, the founder of an organization claiming to champion the rights of individuals against what they perceived as a corrupt court system. Martin, without a law license, stepped into the fray as a legal aid for Pavlos Hackney. Martin, who had filed to appear as a licensed attorney, was not one, and his audacity earned him a scathing rebuke from the judge.
Sir, apparently you have problems with the English language. This says appearance. It is for lawyers.
The tension escalated rapidly, and Martin found himself in contempt of court, sentenced to 93 days in jail, a stark warning to all present of the court's authority. The hearing took a turn when Pavlos Hackney, refusing to take an oath, rendered herself unable to make a statement.
Stop. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes or no? Are you going to tell the truth?
Her silence spoke volumes, and her attorney, Robert Baker, joined via video link, requesting a brief recess to confer with his client. The judge granted this, a brief pause in the day's dramatic events. Upon their return, the outcome was as severe as it was swift. Pavlos Hackney was ordered to remain in jail. Her defiance met with the firm hand of legal consequence.
Free Marlena! Free Marlena! Free Marlena! Free Marlena!
What we see here is an attack on the American dream.
It is.
What we see here is an attack on every American that aspires to live a life worth living.
It is.
How long are you willing to be in jail for your cause?
Whatever will do. Government overreach, corrupt courts. They're using this as an excuse to go after a vulnerable person. She was a woman there. They went after her because it was easy.
This tells me there are a lot of Michiganders who do not want the governmental interference that we're currently facing.
4 days later, she would be released, but only after paying over $30,000 in fines and closing her restaurant for good.
I've caused them a lot of pain. I've caused my family a lot of pain. And I think that by asking for death, I'm only going to cause more pain to my family.
This is Jodi Arias. Her trial at the Maricopa County Superior Court was one of the most sensationalized court cases in recent history. It was marked by numerous bizarre and shocking moments. Arias was charged with the brutal murder of her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander, in 2008. Her trial, which began in January 2013, captivated the nation with its lurid details and dramatic courtroom antics.
Did he ever ejaculate on your face?
No.
In a courtroom packed with spectators and media personnel, all eager to witness the unfolding of a case that had already gripped the nation, the prosecution, Juan Martinez, painted a picture of premeditated murder, arguing that Jodi had planned the killing of Travis Alexander in a fit of jealousy and rage. After discovering he intended to take another woman to Cancun,
she slit his throat, she stabbed him in the heart, and we also know that she shot him. There are 3 different ways that she killed him.
The evidence presented was damning. The prosecution showcased a digital camera found in Travis's washing machine, containing images that placed Jodi at the crime scene. The photos, time-stamped on the day of the murder, included shots of Travis in the shower moments before his death, followed by disturbingly blurred images that suggested a struggle. The jury was shown the recovered, deleted photos, which became a silent testimony to the brutality of the crime.
They go to Travis's room and the door is locked. The roommate goes and gets the key, and as the doors are cast open, they're hit with this putrid smell. And they open up the door, and the light shining from the bathroom is reflecting off a blood pool on the carpet. And the roommate and one of the friends goes in, and they follow this path of bloody footprints up into the shower where they see their friend lying there dead.
In court, she tried to play the victim, and the prosecutor was having none of it.
I don't know. I was trying to kill myself, I think.
Ma'am, you've said that many times.
Further evidence included a bloody palm print belonging to Jodi, intermingled with Travis's blood, found in the hallway of his home. There were also receipts for a gas can purchase, indicating Jodi's attempt to avoid detection on her road trip to Mesa, and rental car agreement for a vehicle used during the time of the murder. which had its floor mats missing and had been cleaned thoroughly before its return, as the prosecution laid out its case. Jodi's behavior in court became a spectacle in itself. She appeared to oscillate between a range of emotions, from tearful breakdowns during graphic testimony
I just couldn't believe what had happened, that I couldn't take anything back, what had just happened.
to a cold, almost detached demeanor when evidence was presented. Her reactions were unpredictable, at times shaking her head in disbelief or smiling at seemingly inappropriate moments. The defense, led by attorney Kirkner Mee, sought to counter the prosecution's narrative by introducing the concept of self-defense. They portrayed Travis as a manipulative individual who had emotionally and physically abused Jodi, pushing her to a breaking point. The defense argued that, on the day of the murder, Jodi had killed Travis in a desperate act of self-preservation. Jodi took the stand in her own defense, a move that would result in 18 days of testimony, a marathon session that would become one of the longest in the history of American criminal trials. Her testimony was a mix of soft-spoken recollections and startling admissions. She recounted the details of her relationship with Travis, alleging abuse and a pattern of sexual exploitation.
He said, kill you, bitch. He body slammed me again on the tile.
Throughout her time on the stand, Jodi's demeanor was scrutinized. Her calm and collected recounting of events contrasted sharply with the emotional breakdowns she exhibited when confronted with the more gruesome aspects of the crime. The jury watched as she attempted to portray herself as a victim.
I believe so.
Well, no. Do you remember previously talking to us about how he was coming at you and he was this horrible man with his mean face? Do you remember telling me that?
Thankfully, the judge could see through her facade and gave her a life sentence.
State of Arizona versus Jodi Arias, verdict, count 1. Let's do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder, guilty.
I personally saw hundreds, if not thousands, of dead people vote.
This is Melissa Carone. She is an IT contract worker.
I was an IT worker on the stage. I was working with Dominion. I had no poll workers were not allowed on the stage.
Hired by a voting machine company, found herself thrust into the limelight in the wake of the 2020 U.S. elections, a battleground fraught with claims of irregularities and fraud. Melissa Carone in her court hearing took a comical turn.
I know what I saw, and I signed something saying that if I'm wrong, I can go to prison. Did you?
I'm drinking. Did you have one? Because I'm the one who had a drink. Did you?
A self-described whistleblower whose allegations of election wrongdoing were previously deemed not credible by a judge captured social media attention with her confrontational appearance before Michigan lawmakers. Melissa Carone, a Republican, made a series of fraud allegations during a hearing, part of Donald Trump's effort to overturn already certified votes.
That poll book? Why don't you look at the registered voters on there? How many registered voters are on there? Do you even know the answer to that?
Despite the failure of Trump's lawsuits in court, he and his allies have been staging high-profile hearings for the media and local lawmakers. Carone, a former contracted worker for Dominion Voting Systems, made headlines with her dramatic demeanor, Midwestern accent, and flippant mannerisms. So much so that even attorney Rudy Giuliani attempted to calm her.
What about the turnout rate? 120%?
Her testimony quickly went viral, with footage of her speaking before the Michigan House Oversight Committee being viewed tens of millions of times.
He said, Melissa, I don't want to hear that we have a problem. He said, we are here to assist with IT. We are not here to run their election. That is exactly what he said to me. These Democrats took every avenue possible to commit fraud in this election.
Carone claimed to have witnessed numerous fraudulent actions at a vote counting center in Detroit. However, a judge had previously found out affidavits from others at the center, which contradicted Carone's claims to be more credible, ruling in November that her allegations were simply not credible. Despite this, the Trump campaign continued to present Carone as a witness, and she testified before the Michigan House of Representatives Oversight Panel, asserting that other campaign witnesses could corroborate her claims, and alleging that Democrats had ruined her life for speaking out.
My life has been completely destroyed because of this. I've lost family, I've lost friends, I've been threatened, my kids have been threatened, I've had to move. I've had to change my phone number. I've had to get rid of social media. Nobody wants to come forward. They're getting threatened. their lives are getting ruined. I can't even get an actual job anymore. I can't. Because Democrats like to ruin your lives. That's why.
Among her many accusations, Courtroom claimed that Michigan ballots were counted multiple times, that votes were cast by dead people and illegals, and that the poll books used to maintain voter information were astronomically inaccurate. A Republican lawmaker, however, refuted her claims, stating that they did not align with his observations.
How can you imagine? She's his only son. No face. Can't even kiss him on the forehead. That's something I couldn't wrap my brain around. Because they had to see him on a metal slab.
This is Shayna Hubers. She is convicted of murder for shooting her boyfriend 6 times. Hubers appeared for her verdict hearing in the Campbell County Circuit Court in Newport, Kentucky. She was charged with 1 count of murder after shooting her boyfriend 6 times because he was about to leave her for a Miss USA contestant.
My name is Cicely Miller, and I was housed with Shayna Hubers. It's like, man, girl, what'd you do? What happened? And so she was like, well, I shot my boyfriend. I said, did you kill him? She goes, yeah. She goes, I shot him in the face. I gave him no job he always wanted. And she cackled. She was like, and just had this cackle, and it just went right through me.
In 2011, 28-year-old Ryan Poston met Shayna Hubers, a psychology student at the University of Kentucky, through his step-cousin on Facebook. They hit it off and began dating, but their relationship was marked by passionate reunions and tumultuous breakups over 18 months. By October 12, 2012, their relationship reached a breaking point. Ryan, 29-year-old at the time, had plans for a date with Miss Ohio USA 2012, Audrey Bolte, a meeting that would never happen.
I believe Shannon just knew it was over. You know, that this was the last straw. He was done with her, and you're out of here. And she wasn't having that. You don't turn your back and say no to her.
During the trial, Audrey Bolte testified for the prosecution, describing her interactions with Ryan in detail.
For some help on a review of some movies that were going on at the time, and he had replied to one of them and left a funny, interesting comment.
How did he strike you?
Funny and smart.
Shayna discovered his plans with Audrey through Facebook messages, which ignited a rage of jealousy and desperation in her.
I got up off the floor and I grabbed the gun and I shot him.
Shayna maintained that the incident was an act of self-defense. However, in the courtroom, the prosecution, led by Michelle Snodgrass, argued otherwise. They contended that Shayna's actions on that fateful October night were not self-defense, but the result of a relationship she couldn't bear to see end. They painted a picture of a premeditated act driven by jealousy and obsession.
So for 3 more times, she raises the gun and fires into Ryan Poston's twitching body until she fired the final shot where she knew it would kill him.
She picked up the gun, in fact.
What would you do if I shot you?
The defense, however, stood firm on the assertion that Shayna was a victim, not a perpetrator. They contended that she had acted in self-defense after enduring an abusive relationship with Ryan.
Degrading her own self-worth. I can't love you. No one can love you. You can't orgasm because you were touched as a child, and no one will ever love you.
Looking back on it, I feel like I was led on. I feel like I was manipulated, used, and abused.
However, the jury was swayed by the prosecution's argument and recommended a severe punishment of 40 years in prison. Hubers' legal team sought a new trial, arguing that evidence supporting her self-defense claim had been unfairly excluded. They also petitioned for her to be recognized as a victim of domestic violence, which could reduce her time served before parole eligibility. Despite these efforts, the jury still handed a guilty verdict.
But I listened to everything that was said in here. I never heard a word or a look that said, I'm sorry to these people back here.
Just once to hear the words, I shouldn't have done that.
As the jury read the verdict, Shayna Hubers broke down in tears.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Shayna Hubers,
guilty of murder under instruction number 5.
Hubers was sentenced to 40 years with the possibility of parole after serving 20 years.
It's certainly not justice, because justice in this case can't be given in court.
I don't believe Shayna has learned her lesson. And if she was to get out on parole, I believe she would find another victim. If it was up to me, Shayna would rot in a cell like this. So Ryan's family can have justice, as she would never see the light of day outside of a jail cell.
This is Penelope Soto. She stands before Judge Rodriguez Comat at Miami-Dade Circuit Court. Penelope Soto was arrested for possession of Xanax, a prescription anti-anxiety drug that's often abused for recreational highs. Standing in court in an orange jumpsuit, Soto stated she earned $200 a week and her assets included jewelry and a car. When asked about the value of her jewelry, she laughed and said a lot.
It's not a joke, you know. We are not in a club now.
Okay, but it's
we are not in a club. Be serious about it.
I'm serious about it.
I can see you're serious, all right.
Judge Rodriguez Comat noticed her lack of seriousness.
It's all right. How much is your jewelry worth?
It's worth a lot of money.
The judge then inquired if she had taken any drugs in the past 24 hours, which she denied. Throughout the exchange, Soto's demeanor shifted from boredom to amusement. As she continuously moved and flicked her hair, Judge Rodriguez Comat set her bond at $5,000 and dismissed her, with her bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Soto, still amused, sarcastically responded with adios as she walked away.
Adios.
After a brief pause, Judge Rodriguez Comat called Soto back, retrieved the papers, and reset her bond at $10,000.
Give me the paper again. Count one would be 10,000.
Are you serious?
I am serious. Adios.
A shocked Soto asked, "Are you serious?" As she turned away, she gave the judge the finger and said. As she turned to leave again, Soto flipped the judge the bird and said. This blatant disrespect led to an immediate response from Judge Rodriguez Comat. He called her back once more and sentenced her to 30 days in jail for contempt of court.
I believe I heard you saying to...
Yes, I did. I'm not going to the...
I believe you... Did you say...
Actually,
Did you say that?
Yes, sir. I did.
Oh, you did say that?
I'm not
I find you in direct criminal contempt. 30 days in the county jail.
Realizing the seriousness of her actions, Soto later returned to court to apologize to Judge Rodriguez Comat. She expressed remorse for her behavior, acknowledging that her actions were inappropriate and disrespectful.
Don't cry. Just don't. Don't cry. I'm not a monster.
And I apologize.
The judge accepted her apology. Her charges were later dropped, and she did not spend up to a week in jail. This is Shayna Vanderark. She was found guilty of open murder and first-degree child abuse for the death of her 15-year-old son, Timothy Ferguson. Back in July 2022, police responded to the family home in Norton Shores and found Timothy dead. Officers said Timothy was emaciated and weighed only 69 pounds. His body also showed signs of hypothermia. Timothy had autism and was speech and motor impaired. Yet Vanderark and her older son, Paul Ferguson, punished Timothy by feeding him hot sauce, putting him in ice baths for hours, depriving him of sleep, and locking the refrigerator and food cabinets. When shown photos of her emaciated, disabled son, who she starved and murdered, this was Vanderark's reaction.
You look like that when you put in the bathtub? I'm sorry.
Muskegon County Prosecutor DJ Hilson called the situation the most disturbing case he has seen in his career. Two of Vanderark's children spoke at the sentencing.
I want the woman who killed my little brother to face the highest punishment possible. I want her detained for the rest of her life so she can't hurt anyone else.
So now I turn to the justice system in hopes that in addition to serving the maximum penalty, that there will be no appeals or second chances. If I can't have my brother back, she shouldn't have her freedom back.
Judge Matthew Castle then spoke directly to Vanderark before he read her sentence.
I'm not going to let you hide in the darkness anymore. People know what you are now. They know what you did. You're not able to hide in the darkness anymore. Timothy won. And he won because we know what you did to him now. It's not hidden anymore. We know who you are. That's the way that I'm going to honor him. It's a sentence of the court. First says to count 2, child abuse in the first degree. Court sentences you 50 years to 100 years in prison. As to count 1. Felony murder. It's a sentence of the court. You serve a term within the Michigan Department of Corrections for the rest of your natural life without parole.
This is Diana Lovejoy. She used to be married to Greg Mulvihill, living in Carlsbad, California. But soon their marriage fell apart and they divorced. After a messy divorce and lots of legal trouble, it ended with the court ordering Diana to pay $120,000 to Greg for his stake in their family house. The court also ordered that she must share custody of their son. Diana became furious about hearing the court orders. So, she planned to kill her ex-husband by teaming up with her boyfriend Weldon McDavid. Greg was shot in the torso, but luckily the bullet didn't hit his heart and he survived. Both McDavid and Diana conspired to murder, and the court has sufficient evidence against them.
It's so painful that some people in this world seem to think that I would have it in me to do this.
Interestingly, she fainted in court. She lowered her head down toward the defense table for a few seconds.
Verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant, Diana Jean Lovejoy, guilty of the crime of attempted murder of Greg Mulvihill.
And right when you hear guilty, you hear a thud.
Guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
It silenced the courtroom, aside from hearing her family cry in the background.
We're going to need to take a break.
She then is brought onto the floor. And when medics bring her out, she still appears to be passed out. But doctors later found out she had only fainted. Weldon McDavid received 50 years to life in prison because he was the one that pulled the trigger. And Diana was sentenced to 26 years to life in prison. This is Jennifer Mee in the Pinellas County Justice Center. At 19 years old, she was arrested on charges of first-degree murder. But this wasn't the first time Mee grabbed the public's attention. When she was 15 years old, she gained international fame when she developed a case of uncontrollable hiccups.
4 weeks ago tomorrow. Pains, throat pains, back pains. It's unbelievable.
She was initially known as the Hiccup Girl, but that all ended when her hiccups were cured and the media had no more interest in her until she was arrested. Mee was accused of setting up a robbery with victims she had met online. She had reportedly recruited Lamont Newton, her boyfriend at the time, and another friend, Laren Rayford, to help rob victims. Mee met up with a 22-year-old man she encountered online. She lured the man to a vacant home, and her two friends robbed and shot the man, which killed him. They got $50 for the robbery and murder. Mee, Rayford, and Newton all lived together and were arrested within hours of the crime. When Mee had first got arrested, she was in jail, and she had a phone call with her mother where she admitted to her involvement, and the conversation ended up being recorded.
This call may be recorded or monitored. I have a free call from
Jennifer Mee,
an inmate at Pinellas County Jail.
I got charged for murder in the first degree.
Charged for murder in the first degree?
Yes, sir.
What charges included you go?
I didn't do nothing. I was just there at the wrong time, at the wrong place. Hello? Hi, Mama. Hello, Jennifer. What's going on? I'm in jail. Why are you in jail? From murder in the first degree. Who'd you kill? I ain't killed nobody. Because I set everything up. It all went wrong, Mama.
The jury returned a guilty verdict, and Mee was found guilty of first-degree murder.
We, the jury, defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged.
And now the judge will hand down the sentence.
The jury having found you guilty of murder in the first degree, Miss Mee, I will adjudicate you guilty and sentence you to life in prison without parole. I'm ordering the 550 standard life in court. You have 30 days to appeal.
Yeah, okay.
Her co-defendants, Rayford and Newton, were also convicted of first-degree felony murder and were sentenced to life in prison. This is Camille Gamut, who is charged with the murder of her boyfriend in Jackson, Mississippi. Reportedly, the attack happened during an argument between the two individuals and ended with a boyfriend being violently stabbed to death. Gamut was arrested on first-degree murder charges. Throughout the trial, Gamut claimed she acted in self-defense and showed no remorse, even when the victim's family members addressed the court during the sentencing hearing.
I remember the cries of help that he screamed as you plunged that knife in and out of his body.
We have no choice but to send her where she will also die. I can't believe she stands before you doing this.
While the victim's family members spoke, Gamut rolled her eyes, smirked, and mouthed words. However, Judge John McBain would not tolerate her behavior.
And you're gonna shut your mouth or I'm gonna have some duct tape put on it.
But that didn't end it. Camille Gamut's nonchalant attitude only escalated as she addressed the court.
The way I was portrayed, mostly everything was lies. There was a little bit of truth, but mostly I was convicted off of lies.
With Gamut showing no remorse, the judge had some final words.
You stab, you stab, you stab, you stab until he was dead. I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well. You know, if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
In the end, Gamut was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This is Candelario. She is facing charges of 1 count of aggravated murder and 1 count of endangering children at Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court.
She was a mother. She got a title that means something in this world.
In the summer of 2022, Candelario left her 16-month-old daughter, Jalyn, alone in a playpen with a few bottles of milk while she went on a 10-day vacation. Candelario was in Puerto Rico with a male friend enjoying the beach and later stopping in Detroit. In court, prosecutors revealed footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera, capturing Jalyn's frequent screams.
Around 1:04 a.m. in the morning that you hear this child crying.
If you listen closely, you can actually hear Candelario's daughter crying. Let's play it again. When Candelario returned home, she discovered the lifeless body of her daughter. Jalyn had been trapped without food, water, or her mother's care. In a state of panic, she called 911. Candelario was immediately arrested and charged.
She didn't want this to happen. You could hear that.
During the sentencing hearing, the prosecution and the police laid out the harrowing details of the case, painting a picture of a mother who had forsaken her most sacred duty.
This baby loved her mother. She needed her mother, and her mother betrayed her.
Candelario was given a chance to speak during the hearing. Addressing the court through an interpreter, she expressed remorse, asking for forgiveness from the society she had shocked and from the daughter she had lost.
I'm extremely hurt about everything that happened.
No estoy tratando de justificar mis actos.
I'm not trying to justify my actions.
Pero nadie sabe cuánto yo estaba sufriendo.
But nobody knew how much I was suffering.
Y por lo que estaba pasando.
And what I was going through.
It was then time for the judge to hand down his sentence. But before he did, he had this to say.
The bond between a mother and a child is one of the most purest and most sacred bonds between human beings. Yet, in a shocking and betrayal of this fundamental trust, you committed the ultimate act of betrayal.
The judge then handed down the sentence.
You should spend the rest of your life in a cell without freedom. The only difference will be that prison will at least feed you.
Candelario is currently serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. This is Erica Butts and Shanita Cunningham. They were both charged with homicide by child abuse in Somerville, South Carolina. Butts, who was best friends with the child's mother, was supposed to be caring for the toddler for 2 weeks. The child was only 3 years old. She died from her injuries, reflecting weeks of torture, a time frame that matched the time she had spent with Butts and her lover at the time, Cunningham.
What must have been the excruciating sounds that came from that child is more than disconcerting to this court.
After both women were found guilty, the judge now hands down their sentence.
The court finds it appropriate that each be sentenced to the State Department of Corrections for a period of life.
They were just sentenced to life in prison. Butts and Cunningham are reportedly at separate prisons serving their life sentences. This is Amanda Sperduti. She was charged with driving drunk and felony death by motor vehicle in a wreck that killed her friends. In 2010, 20-year-old Amanda Sperduti and her friends, 18-year-old Sasha Adela Hoffman and Taylor Lee McCaskill, and 23-year-old Scott Wayne Bedwell, set off for a party after drinking at a friend's house, with a blood alcohol level of 20, more than twice the legal limit. Sperduti lost control of the car, speeding at 90 mph in a 45 zone. She veered off the road, hitting a street sign and then a tree. The impact tore the car in half, and all 3 passengers were pronounced dead at the scene. During the sentencing hearing, the parents of the victims gave heartfelt testimonies. Scott Wayne, Bedwell's father, staring directly at Amanda, delivered his with a heavy heart.
You can still talk to your mother. You can cry with your mother. Eventually you'll laugh with your mother. I cannot. I want to hug my boy.
Taylor McCaskill's grandmother also had some poignant words to share during the hearing as McCaskill's parents wept in the courtroom.
My life has been changed forever. And Lord, I know you can't possibly need Taylor as much as her mother and I did.
Sperduti broke down into tears during each of the testimonies. At some point during the hearing, Amanda Sperduti emotionally addressed the court.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I suffer from it every day of my life. I'm so messed up. I suffer from this every single day of my life. I will for the rest of my life.
Amanda Sperduti was sentenced to 7 to 12 years in prison for aggravated felony death by motor vehicle.